Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nostalgia Machine. Today is episode 2 of 3D World Runner. We're going to try this one more time for the second week, and we'll see how far we can get. We started back right where we left off, which I believe we just died after facing off against, the third boss? No, we didn't even make it to the boss. That's right. So, we're doing some thinking. It's not really important. It is, but it isn't. Anyways, I wanted to take this chance during my gameplays, especially games like this, where you can just chill, relax. It's not the first episode. You've seen this all before. For us, just a little talk about different things, you know? That's kind of what I want to do with this channel, is like just talk about things and just have a good time, you know? You know how it is. But yeah, I was thinking about like video games and stuff, and like different consoles and throughout history, and I was looking at my channel, and I was like, oh, well, you know what? Right now, all I really have on my channel is PlayStation 1 and NES games, which is fine. That's not all that's going to be there. I have a Sega Genesis I want to bring in at one point. Of course, PlayStation is a big one for me. Look, so like NES games, when I was coming out, when I was growing up, I was like a young kid. I would say like from birth till, I don't know, 6, 7, maybe 8, 6, 7, 8, around there. Then the Nintendo 64 came out and the PlayStation 1. And I was talking to a friend the other day, and we were talking about like different game systems we grew up with and all of that. And they were my friend was like slightly younger than me. So it was interesting to see his take on like what he remembers. Like, he doesn't really remember NES or anything like that like I do. But he's like PlayStation 2, GameCube, all of that. And like I grew up with that too, but that was like preteen, teenager, early teenagers, when I was in that stuff, and some of the games that he would have been into just didn't interest me at the time. It was just kind of like, okay, whatever, that's a kid's game. So it didn't really like stick with me as much as it stuck with him. But I was doing some thinking about me and games, and you know, kind of what games to expect on this channel. You know, I'm doing a lot of blind stuff that I haven't played before, but I also want to do stuff that I have played before. Oh, I didn't realize I just lost my power-ups. Yeah, and there's a lot of games that I want to play on here that I've, what's it called? Never really played before. But I also want to go back and play some of the stuff that I remember, and we're going to get to them soon. Metal Gear Solid, I think on my playthrough of that's first time. But yeah, I just want to talk about like game systems and stuff, and like, so like if we go through like what I grew up with, like actually owning and playing, the first of course would be the NES. And, you know, because it was the young childhood, like it had some good games to it. But I don't remember like a big library. I just remember like what my brothers owned, what my family kind of had growing up. Not really anything like super big. You know, Mario's, of course. Zelda. I love Zelda for the NES. And then like the Super Nintendo era. We had the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. But for like that generation, like, I don't know, it was weird because there's an age gap between me and my brothers. So like they were into like a lot more older, holy nutcrackers, a lot older games. And then like I remember for the Super Nintendo like playing Donkey Kong Country with my mom. I don't know, the Super Nintendo was weird for me, because there's a lot of games I remember that were, like, older themed that, Like, that was the first Final Fantasy I've ever played, which, when we get there, I want to tell that story when we played that game. But it was Final Fantasy 3, which is 6. Um, it was kind of cool how we did that, but other than Donkey Kong Country, I mean, Super Mario World, of course. Jeez, why am I just losing my power-ups? Um, I hate these hands. Trying to think. I'm also trying to avoid these hand things. Because I know I always cut short on the time here. And I'm trying not to mess up this level. I'm trying to at least get to new territory. But, yeah, Super Nintendo, now that I'm thinking about it, like, yeah, there was good titles. There wasn't that much I really remember. I mean, there's a lot of, like, side games, that I remember. We'll get there when we get there. I didn't know there was a time extender. That's kind of cool. I've never seen that before. I've never seen that time piece. Wonder if there is an extra life on this level. Because on these ones, I've never seen the extra life. It's always been like just that, and then we're done. Like Super Smash TV, we never owned the Zelda. What is it? Link to the Past? We never owned that. I knew someone who did own it. And, like, I played it, like, once growing up. But as far as, like, us growing up with it, we never had. I remember renting Zelda 2. Maybe we got the Super Nintendo, like, right as this. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of. But I'm sure once we start playing those games for the Super Nintendo, like, my memories start jogging back. And I'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember this game. And this game, we'll get there eventually. But then the Nintendo 64 is where it really started to pick up. And the 64, I was talking to my friend, like, the Nintendo 64 was a good system, but, like, I remember the few titles that I liked. You know, and a couple side mini games that were just like, okay, unless you played it at the time, it's just kind of unique. So like for the Nintendo 64, for instance, if we're talking game-wise, like, okay, Ocarina of Time was probably my favorite. Super Mario 64 is a good one. We had Rave Racer, which I remember playing. It was just like a cool little racing thing. Just because we had brothers. 007 James Bond was a good multiplayer one. Everyone talks about that, but it really was a good. I think everyone played that game multiplayer, honestly. So, of course, that's a good one. But like, there's other games like BanjoKazooie. Few people know about BanjoKazooie, but that was a good solid game. What are some other ones for the Nintendo 64? I forgot the short pillars. I know my friend had Turok. That was pretty cool growing up. Especially at the age of like Jurassic Park and stuff like that. Yeah, Turok was pretty cool back in the day. Now I gotta focus on these jumps here. We're gonna have some flame walls coming up. Now, see, now we're in the point of we're at like new territory right now. But what's it called? Turok was pretty cool. We never owned it. Trying to think of like N64 games like that we actually owned. That Diddy Kong Racing for some reason I liked that game. Whoa. So that one went right. That was interesting. There wasn't a frog on every single section. Okay, that was interesting. Yeah, but what I really remember specifically, like I'm sure once we go back and hit the 64 and the Super Nintendo and Genesis up, we'll be able to talk about all the titles that I remember playing and the games I find the best. But like PlayStation 1 is where I really picked up gaming. I think the first game I ever played for the PS1 was Resident Evil, the original, not the director's cut. Nope, I forbid the director's cut. I know it was more accessible to a lot of people, but for me, I had the original Resident Evil, and oh, it was such a classic, and I loved that game so much. It's something about it that the new Resident Evils just can't even do. Resident Evil 2 did do good on making it a follow-up, same with 3, but it would never be like the original Resident Evil. That was so unique and so innovative, and the way they did it was so good, and I missed my extra life. So I remember doing Resident Evil 1 for the first time, and I was like, this is awesome. We had some other PlayStation 1 games in between then. But the one PlayStation game that I do remember the most was Final Fantasy VII, and I played that so much. It was so crazy. I know Mario 64 I played like crazy when that came out, but something about Final Fantasy VII just spoke with me at the time. Well, like I said, I'm just kind of briefly telling you kind of the gaming history of me during this episode, and then we'll all touch base of all of this when we play these games, because that's kind of the point of this channel, is to play those games. Besides that, man, so many great classics on the PS1. Legend of Dragoon, I want to showcase that. That's such an underrated cult classic now. That game was so awesome. Like, that's how I judge people if they're gaming worthy to what I like in my genre of stuff. I'll be like, hey, have you ever heard of this game? And like, I've found few people, but I've found like one or two that's played that game. And every time I do, I'm just like, no way, you actually know what that game is? And oh, that game is, it's not great. Like, looking back on it, it's not great. We'll get to there when we get to there. I keep saying that. But it is so cool. I remember showing a friend that growing up and being like, dude, this is so cool. You got to play this. And I got him hooked to it. Yeah, I miss that game. We'll play that. Final Fantasy VII we'll play. I'm trying to think like PS1 titles. Like, it's so hard to think like on the spot when you're looking at it. Of course, Metal Gear Solid, current playthrough, you can watch it in the link, on my page. It's all up there. So yeah, Metal Gear Solid was another one that I played all the time. Just so great, so many great games for the PS1 generation. Then we got the PS2, and the PS2 was unique because they were trying, like, the graphics were starting to get better. Like, they're not the greatest, but they were starting to get better. PlayStation, like, knew they could do the console war back in the day, and they just were like, okay, well, we're going with it. And then they started to get really innovative with the games and what they were trying to do. I don't know, I remember some of the launch titles for the PS2 that we got when we first got it. I don't know if they were necessarily launch titles, but they were early titles for the PS2. What is it, some ring, Eternal Ring? It was some weird game. I don't even know if it would... I'm curious to play that and see what that even is like, you know, looking back on it. Because I remember it being interesting. I don't want to say good, but interesting. And then, you know, you got Metal Gear Solid 2 for the PS2. You got just a bunch of games. SOCOM, U.S. Navy SEALs. That was a unique game that I played for reasons. Especially because, like, that was the first online game. And it was the first, like, online shooting game, which was very unique for the time. Like, that was before Call of Duty. It was the first time you had to buy, like, an external modem for your PlayStation 2. Yeah, that was cool. The GameCube came out, too. I skipped the GameCube. And the GameCube's kind of the interesting thing, like the Nintendo 64. Like, I remember, like, wanting the Star Wars game, Rogue Squadron 2, which Shadows of the Empire for the N64. I'm backtracking a little bit, because we totally skipped over Nintendo, but, yeah, Rogue One I wanted. There was, Star Wars Bounty Hunter for the GameCube, that was pretty cool. What else was there for the GameCube? But, like, okay, so, like, Zelda, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask for the N64 were really good. But I was at the age where, like, it was demographic for me. So, like, I ate that game up, and I know it's still considered one of the best Zeldas or whatever, and I agree. But, like, Wind Waker, everyone claims and swears on Wind Waker, and Wind Waker was one of those games that when it came out, I was just like, okay. Like, I was like 15, 16, 14, 15. You know, that starting of the rebellious teenage phase and all that. And I saw the art style and I was like, yeah, I don't care about Zelda. Plus, by that time, that's like close when Final Fantasy 12 came out. Final Fantasy 10 was already out. Like that's what I was into. And like talking about like Kingdom Hearts, like I didn't really play Kingdom Hearts till much later, because when it came out, I was like, yeah, okay, you think it would be meant for me, because I was like, oh yeah, I love Final Fantasy, but I didn't care about the Disney crap added to it. So I'm like, don't put Final Fantasy in with Disney. Like, you can't just do that. You can't have Sephiroth with Mickey Mouse. And I still don't know how I feel about Kingdom Hearts. I want to go back and actually seriously play Kingdom Hearts and see how that is. And compare that to today. I don't know. Yeah, but the PS2 was kind of weird. Like Kingdom Hearts, God of War, I didn't really care for. There were certain games like I didn't care for at the time. But now, like, looking back on it, it's kind of like, I kind of want to try some of these games to see if I shouldn't have skipped them or what, you know? But, yeah, that's kind of my gaming history. PS3 wasn't really much to talk about. You had, you know, certain titles like Call of Duty that I played a lot. Just, yeah. PS4, I skipped the launch, you know, when it first came out, just because I didn't really care enough. I think I got the PS4 Pro when Final Fantasy 14 came out. Why? I think it did that last time. It like acted like it was like a game over. And I don't know why it did that. Alright. See if we can't get to this next part of the level. Right. See? It acts like I died. Alright. Okay. Did we actually hit the checkpoint? Okay, what's going on here? I don't even know what was going on there. Like, what am I supposed to do? Okay. See, now I'm just confused, because I don't even know what I was supposed to do there. We're at about 20 minutes on this episode. We'll keep going. Yeah, so, like, if I were to rank everything that I've played growing up and all of that, we'll do one last run, and then we'll call it an episode. Okay, so let's start at the beginning again. So Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. I think the games that I would say like my top 3. Let's do the top 3 games of each game system that I've played and actually owned. So we don't really talk about the Xbox because I really don't have much experience with. But okay, so the NES. I think top 3 games. Legend of Zelda has to be up there. Like, from what I know, and it's not including the new stuff that I'm blind playthroughing now, like Ghosts and Ghouls, this game. It's including the stuff that I grew up with as a kid at the time. Right? So Zelda would be one. You know, honestly, I want to get to this game. Oh, Super Mario Brothers 3 was a really good NES game. And see, I want to say Final Fantasy 1. But the thing is, I didn't grow up with that game. I bought it way later, and then I liked it a lot. You know, for what the system had. You know what I'm saying? So I can't include that in the list. So yeah, Zelda, Super Mario Brothers 3, that's a really good Mario game. What would be my third one that we actually grew up with owning? You know what? I remember Zelda. Jeez. Zelda a lot. Super Mario Brothers 3. I'm just trying to think of what else, like, on the NES that... I guess the only other game that comes to mind on the top is Metroid, that we grew up with. Yeah, I think those would be my top 3 NES games that we grew up with that I'm familiar with and, you know about and all of that. So that's that is NES. Game Boy games, I mean, technically, because we own the Gray Brick, I guess the game that would come to mind first is Pokemon Red, because that's technically the last Game Boy game ever made, before the Game Boy blew up and Game Boy Color and Advanced and blah 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 all came out. But Link's Awakening, it would be another one. Game Boy, there really wasn't much. It was like just interesting. Tetris was a cool one, just because everyone owned it. But yeah, for Sega Genesis, the game that I remember, I know the number one that I would call for the Sega Genesis was the X-Men game, not the second stupid one, the Clone Wars or whatever the second game was, but the first original X-Men game for the Sega Genesis. That game is a classic. I don't care what anyone's opinion is. That is a classic game, and yeah, if you don't agree with it, that's your own business. But that, number one for Sega Genesis. I like Sonic 3 out of all of them, so Sonic 3. And then, I don't really know. Mortal Kombat we played a lot, so I guess I would have to say Mortal Kombat. But that does it for, like, the Genesis. Super Nintendo, right? So, I only count this because we played it through at least halfway or more. We didn't own it, but we did play it halfway through, or beyond. My brother borrowed it from a friend. But that would be Final Fantasy 3, or what everyone knows now is Final Fantasy 6. That would be my top Super Nintendo game. You know, Donkey Kong Country is really good. I gotta have that up in the top 3. The original one. Diddy Kong's was alright, and yeah, the third one I don't even know. What else for the... I mean, Super Mario World was good. That we grew up with. Super Smash TV was good. You know, that's all that really comes to mind, to be honest. For the Super Nintendo. So I guess Super Mario World, Final Fantasy 3 or 6, and I said it before. I forgot what I already said. But you know what I said. Yeah, those would have to be up there for the Super Nintendo. Then the Nintendo 64. Oh God. Nintendo 64. So Mario 64, of course, is up there. Ocarina of Time. Sure. I don't know if I would put Majora's Mask up there. Majora's Mask was a good game for, you know, at the time. But I don't know if I would put it at the top 3. You know what? BanjoKazooie, even though I never really, like, beat it or got close to beating it, it was a fun game. So I think I would do Mario 64, because I know I played that a lot as a kid. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. That was one reason why I wanted the Nintendo 64. And then... No, you know what? You know what? No, Shadows of the Empire. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire was a very good game. So yeah, Shadows of the Empire, Super Mario 64, and Ocarina of Time. Those are my top 3 N64 games. And then for PlayStation 1, Final Fantasy 7, first and always. Always. You know, Metal Gear Solid, sure, we'll put that in the top 2. And Legend of Dragoon, yeah. See, that's where I started to lean towards RPGs. Is PS1 era. PS2, Final Fantasy X up there. I can't really say, like, which one's my favorite in the PS2 era, but Final Fantasy X is up there. God. Now I'm trying to think about, like, PS2 games. It's really hard to say. Yeah, Final Fantasy X for the PS2. I don't know. I don't know what else put on the PS2. Man, I forgot Resident Evil for the PlayStation 1. How could I forget RE1 for the PS2? Or for the PS1? Why does it register as me dying when I'm clearly still alive? That's kind of funky. It didn't actually take a life when it did that, did it? I hope not. Trying to focus on these blind jumps too. See? It says I died, but I didn't. I'm still going. It shuts off the music though. That's fortunate. Okay. Last guy. Yeah, so this is kind of just my way to talk about games and like what I grew up with and all of that. So you kind of get an idea of like what games I'm into and what type of games you can look forward to me playing on the channel and all of that. And I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do there. Yeah, but we'll call that an episode. I think this will be it for 3D World Runner. Um, yeah, I think this will be it for 3D World Runner. I don't think we can really make much progress unless like there's like 20 episodes of me just failing and failing and failing. We're already going on a 30-minute episode. I just ran off a cliff. Yeah, we'll call this an episode here for 3D World Runner. Maybe I'll come back to it like on a live stream and try to see how far we can get. To have another raging live stream like Ghosts and Goblins the other time. But yeah, so yeah, we'll call it there. Thank you guys all for watching. And as always, goodbye for now. Until yesterday.